the mental health issues in the trans community. We do know that there is a higher incidence of depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, suicide attempts, and suicide in that particular community. The question is it because of a mental emotional maladjustment associated with the rejection that's associated with what they're experiencing from family and friends, or is it associated with what they're experiencing, independent of the rejection? And I think you can articulate that it's the rejection, and I'd like to clarify that some.
The higher rates of depression and anxiety, and then suicide rates, uh, is is most likely growing up in a culture where they can't feel like they fit in, and they don't have access to resources that everyone else would have, or even the language to talk about how they're feeling, and feeling potentially this disconnect between maybe what their body looks like or how they are biologically, and then how they feel internally. And I mean, I guess if you wanted to pull it full circle, knowing that that is one of the rationales for talking more about these issues at a younger age, in an age appropriate way, so it's not so foreign, and it's not so isolating for individuals that it can lead to depression and even worse.
Well, a couple of major statistics, and these may be obsolete in one respect because I think the general population statistic is pre-pandemic, and I think the post-pandemic or during this pandemic, the rate is higher. But one statistic is 39% of the transgender people report serious psychological distress versus 5% of the U.S. population. And I'm saying I think the 5% is higher now because of the pandemic. And I suspect the 39% is probably higher as well because of the pandemic, but probably the differential is pretty much the same. So the serious psychological distress is much higher among transgender people than the U.S. population in general. And that's your experience, and your familiarity with the research confirms that?
Yeah, and think about so pronouns are a good example of something that we can easily advocate for, and guess what? It doesn't really cost any money to to change pronouns, or to allow people to choose their own pronouns. But when we think about some of these statistics that you're saying now, it's important to think about that it's in most states, it's still legal to discriminate in housing and in employment and all other parts of our lives based on gender identity. And so imagine the kinds of stress and anxiety and depression and that can cause. So it's not just I can't choose my pronouns, it's very real material world challenges.
Well, isn't it true that youth that are able to change their name or some type of gender marker on legal documents, for example, reported much lower rates of suicidal ideation and attempts? I mean, there was some pressure release associated with that.
Yeah, there is. Because imagine you can just, it's things that we take for granted if you don't, if you, if you are cisgender, and you don't have to think about that additional stress. It's not as noticeable to us or noticeable at all, but it can be just a huge sense of the pressure taken off to just be able to go about your day and have that part not be an issue.